The Rockstars are coming. There is a phenomenon in cybersecurity. Honestly, it is in all of information technology, and that is the Rockstar. Normally, the R wouldn't be capitalized there, but they get really mad if you don't spell their names right. There are two types of these folks. The actual standard Rockstar, which is the kind that is actually terrific at what they do, but a little prickly and extremely difficult to deal with. Then there is the Wannabe Rockstar, and I would argue this is the worst of the breed. This is the one where the creature doesn't really know much of anything, but is very convinced that they do. They tend to have larger egos than the standard Rockstar, and can do significantly more damage if allowed to run loose and untethered. Over the years, I've managed probably a dozen or so of both these sorts of monsters, and it has seldom ended well. I want to focus more on the second type in this post because I've noticed quite a geometric rise in them in security lately. A lot of these things get their start in school because they could defrag a hard drive or install some antivirus software, basic stuff. They performed these activities for friends, parents, teachers, etc., who weren't too technical, so they were called genius over and over. Then they started believing it. There is a lot of danger in believing you're a genius, and the primary one is that you typically stop learning. This danger is the breeding ground of the Wannabe Rockstar. It is the radiation that feeds their egos and helps the monster inside of them grow and grow. Once the monster is big enough, there is no stopping it. In the olden days, as my daughter calls them, I worked with a Wannabe Rockstar and it was brutal. I won't reveal his name as usual, but we'll call him Y, as in why he was ever hired. I never managed him, but I had to interact with him daily, and that was enough. You could not say good morning to this guy without getting a lecture on how you said it wrong. Yes, he was that guy. One time, Y went to a conference for one of our largest vendors at the time, Checkpoint Software, whose main product was called Firewall 1, and he had to give a recap of what he learned there. This was peak Rockstar time. Y strolled up to the whiteboard in our weekly meeting and regaled us with tales of advanced networking features and fantastical software designs, which all sounded like complete nonsense in retrospect. Then he said it. He told us he knew a secret no one else knew. He learned they were releasing Firewall 2. Well played, Y, well played. You revealed your wannabe status to the whole company in 2 seconds. No way Checkpoint would have changed the name of their flagship product. And most people then thought the company's name was Firewall 1. This was in the 90s, so there was no YouTube of the talks. Nothing he said could be verified. Y's story is pretty funny to me, but at the time I was angry. I was angry because he was also going around telling clients all this stuff, and I was going to have to straighten it all out with the client later. Rockstars of both ilk have to feel important, so expect them to always exaggerate their claims and abilities. These sorts are difficult to work at best. They tend to procrastinate heavily because they don't actually know where or how to start. Y once drove a big customer batty because he kept coming up with excuses for why he was late with milestones, and at times he'd simply push the milestone out and blame the software. It was Excel. It was amazing to watch how fast he could come up with the lies, and amusing if I didn't have to cover for him so much. He was finally let go because a client had had enough and essentially gave an ultimatum. This is why you see rock stars of both varieties hop around from job to job quickly. They want to escape before anyone finds them out. A quick note on the standard rock star. They can be terribly useful, and that is why they are almost never fired. Until their bad attitudes reach someone high enough in the company to make that decision, they usually coast along because people are typically tolerant of talent. They can be awfully demoralizing to folks they consider lesser than themselves. If you're running a team or a company, take it from me. Be quick to root them out and get them out of the door. They are poison to your team and typically not worth the effort of keeping them around. Finally, there is a new type of rock star emerging. It has been growing for a few years now, and we'll call them the Rockstars Rockstar. I have worked with a few of these. They thrive by going to conferences, calling it a learning experience. And though they're really simply trying to gain a reputation, they will swear it's all for the greater good. It isn't. 99.5% of conferences are useless from an educational perspective. They're for networking, goofing off, and trying to build a fan base. That's it. I've been to a few, some of the big ones and some of the small ones, and they were all worthless. I used to have folks who did attend them come back and do presentations on what they learned. I learned that trick early in my career with Y. They were always disasters. No one really learned anything except how much alcohol they could imbibe without dying. Now these folks have moved on to YouTube, where they cover such fascinating topics as why you should change your passwords and did you know that bad guys are trying to hack you? I wish those weren't real topics, but they are. Now, all of these folks claim to be seasoned professionals when most aren't even in their mid-20s, or they're salespeople. You won't learn too much from their videos other than they can spit out what other people have said for years. and is printed in any intro to information security book. Not every thought has to be original, but the Rockstars are simply cover bands who only do the hits.